The women survived by eating rats, worms, insects, rotten food scraps, and even pieces of decaying wood, and then pretended to be dying prisoners to escape from the pirate captain. The table was set, along with knives, rags, and water. Whoever looks strong will be chosen first. In the remote corners of the Caribbean, looking half dead became the only way to survive. Picture the year 1717. The merchant ship St. Eleanor vanished beneath a black flag somewhere between Barbados and Tortuga, and by sunset, every surviving woman had been chained inside a cargo hold that smelled of mold, seawater, rat droppings, and rotting oak. For 3 days, the pirates gave them almost nothing to eat, except spoiled biscuit dust crawling with worms and brackish water collected from leaking barrels. Hunger soon became more terrifying than the darkness itself. Desperate women trapped rats beneath broken crates, roasted them over tiny hidden embers, picked beetles and worms from the soaked timbers, scraped mold from old bread, and even chewed splinters of softened wood simply to fool their empty stomachs into believing they had eaten something. Every disgusting bite meant surviving one more day. Then whispers spread through the hold. The pirate captain had become obsessed with an old superstition claiming that the hearts and livers of courageous captives could be used in a forbidden ritual to guarantee victory at sea and protect his crew from storms, cannon fire, and the gallows. The women did not know whether the story was true or merely another cruel game designed to break their spirits, but they believed one thing without question: anyone who looked healthy and strong might be chosen first. From that night onward, they deliberately made themselves appear sick. They covered their skin with soot, rubbed foul-smelling slime from the bilge onto their clothes, tangled their hair with grease, staggered when guards were watching, and forced themselves to swallow rats, worms, rotten scraps, insects, and waterlogged wood until they looked pale, exhausted, and barely alive. Their only hope was that the pirates would dismiss them as worthless before the nightmare hidden behind the captain's terrifying legend became reality. Before dawn, the women began organizing their survival with the discipline of a hidden crew. They counted every rat hole, every loose plank, every dripping seam, and every moment when the guards changed above the hatch. One prisoner named Eliza discovered that the ship's lower futtocks had softened where seawater entered through failing oakum, allowing pale shipworms and beetle larvae to burrow through the decaying fibers. The women dug them out with bent nails and swallowed them raw because fire smoke might reveal their secret. Another prisoner collected black fungus growing behind a cracked cask, while 2 others trapped rats using loops made from torn hemp and baited them with fragments of rancid salt beef stolen from beneath the galley ladder. Their bodies weakened rapidly, but that weakness became part of the deception. Whenever the captain descended carrying a brass lantern, they coughed, trembled, and pressed themselves against the slime-covered hull as though fever had already claimed them. He inspected their eyes, teeth, and hands, searching for anyone who still appeared strong enough for his ritual. The terror was intensified by objects visible inside his cabin whenever the door opened: iron hooks, stained medical knives, empty glass jars, and a weathered book filled with drawings of human organs beside symbols resembling compass roses. None of the women knew whether these things had ever been used, yet uncertainty made the threat more powerful. They understood that appearing helpless was not enough. They had to become repulsive in the pirates' eyes. They smeared rotten fish oil across their skin, chewed foul wood until their gums bled, and hid the healthiest prisoners beneath filthy sailcloth whenever footsteps approached, transforming starvation itself into camouflage while secretly preparing to escape. On the 7th night, the hold had become a world of darkness where every breath carried the taste of mildew and stagnant seawater. The women were little more than shadows, their faces hollow, their clothes stiff with salt and grime. Yet beneath the appearance of hopelessness, they quietly observed every habit of the pirates above. They memorized the creak of each hatch, the changing footsteps of the watch, and the exact moment when the crew celebrated with stolen rum. The captain continued visiting the prisoners, convinced that fear alone would eventually expose the strongest among them. Instead, he found women who looked barely capable of standing. They deliberately left scraps of rotten rat bones scattered around the hold, allowing the smell of decay to become even more unbearable. Some pretended to suffer violent fevers, while others covered themselves with mold scraped from damp barrels until their skin appeared diseased in the lantern light. The pirates recoiled from the stench, muttering that sickness could spread through the ship faster than any enemy cannonball. Believing the captives were deteriorating beyond any value, the guards grew careless, leaving the hatch open longer each evening to clear the foul air. That single mistake became the opportunity the women had been waiting for. Hidden beneath loose planks, they had slowly collected rusted nails, broken chain links, fragments of iron hoops from shattered barrels, and lengths of worn hemp rope. While the pirates laughed on deck beneath the moonlight, the prisoners silently worked at the weakened shackles, knowing that every second of freedom would have to be earned before the captain could decide whether his terrifying superstition would end as nothing more than a cruel legend or become the final horror of their captivity. Midnight arrived beneath a sky hidden by thick storm clouds, and the rolling sea drowned the faint sounds of metal scraping against metal. One by one, the weakened shackles finally surrendered as rusted links snapped beneath the pressure of improvised tools. No one spoke. Every movement had been rehearsed through silent gestures repeated for days in the darkness. The women knew they could not overpower the entire pirate crew, but they did not need to. They needed confusion. Two prisoners loosened the wedges holding several water casks in place. Another quietly cut through an aging hemp line supporting stacked cargo. When the ship rolled sharply to starboard, the barrels broke free, crashing across the lower deck with such violence that lanterns swung wildly and terrified shouts erupted overhead. Believing the vessel had struck a hidden reef, half the pirates rushed toward the pumps while others scrambled to secure the shifting cargo. The women seized the moment, climbing through smoke-blackened passageways toward the upper deck. Behind them, the captain discovered the empty hold and roared with fury, convinced that his captives had escaped before he could carry out the ritual he had spoken of for days. The pirates scattered across the ship, searching every compartment, but the prisoners had already slipped into the confusion created by the storm. Their disguises had worked so well that several pirates failed to recognize them in the darkness, mistaking the filthy, skeletal figures for members of the exhausted crew. Every rat they had swallowed, every worm they had forced themselves to eat, and every splinter of rotten timber they had chewed to survive had bought them enough time to reach the final and most dangerous gamble of their desperate escape. Rain lashed the deck with such force that visibility shrank to only a few yards, and the sea itself seemed determined to erase every sound except the cracking of masts and the roar of the wind. The women crawled across rain-soaked planks, keeping low behind coils of tarred rope and overturned boats, while the pirates shouted contradictory orders in the darkness. One prisoner reached the longboat first and quietly cut the securing lines with a rusted knife stolen from the cargo hold. Another loosened the iron pin holding the davit in place. At the same moment, a massive wave struck the ship's tumble home, throwing several pirates to the deck and extinguishing nearly every lantern. Chaos erupted. The captain screamed for his men to find the escaped prisoners, convinced they had ruined the ceremony he believed would make him invincible. But fear had turned against him. Some pirates whispered that the women were cursed, claiming no ordinary captives could survive weeks on rats, worms, rotten scraps, insects, and softened wood, while still finding the strength to escape. Superstition spread faster than commands. Crewmen hesitated, refusing to descend into the foul-smelling hold where they believed disease and bad fortune now lived. Taking advantage of the panic, the women lowered the longboat into the raging sea and pushed away from the pirate vessel just as another towering wave separated them from their captors. Behind them, the black ship vanished into sheets of rain while the captain's furious voice faded into the storm, leaving the survivors exhausted, starving, and barely alive, but finally beyond the reach of the nightmare that had haunted every moment of their captivity. Dawn broke slowly across the Atlantic, revealing a gray horizon where the pirate ship had disappeared into the storm. The overloaded longboat drifted between towering swells, carrying women who had survived not because they were stronger than their captors, but because they had refused to surrender their will. Their bodies were scarred by hunger, their hands swollen from salt water, and their stomachs still twisted from weeks spent swallowing rats, insects, worms, rotten scraps, and splinters of softened timbers simply to remain alive long enough for one chance at freedom. Several collapsed from exhaustion while others took turns bailing seawater with broken buckets, determined not to let the ocean finish what the pirates had begun. Near sunset, a passing merchant Snow spotted the tiny boat and hauled the survivors aboard. Safe at last, they told the crew about the whispers of the captain's terrifying ritual, the fear that had driven them to disguise themselves as dying prisoners, and the desperate plan that had transformed starvation into their greatest weapon. Some listeners believed every word, while others dismissed the tale as madness born from unbearable suffering. Yet none could explain how a handful of unarmed captives had escaped one of the most feared pirate crews in the Caribbean. Whether the captain truly intended to carry out his dreadful superstition or merely used it to shatter hope no longer mattered. The women had defeated him without cannon fire or swords, proving that even in the darkest corners of the sea, courage, patience, and the determination to survive could overcome a terror greater than death itself.